The funeral home smelled like lilies and disappointment. I sat in the front row, my bank account $180,000 lighter than it had been 10 years ago, watching my brother Kyle wipe away tears that I'm pretty sure were manufactured for the occasion. He'd gotten good at crying on cue. Probably from all those years of manipulating Mom into buying him the latest gaming console while I was writing checks for her chemotherapy. My name is Jessica, and this is the story of how I discovered that being the responsible child comes with a price tag, but no rewards. At least, that's what I thought until an accountant named Harold Whitman changed everything with a single question. Miss Thompson, do you still have all your receipts? But let me start from the beginning, from the day Mom got diagnosed. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I'd just gotten promoted to senior project manager, and I was taking Mom out to celebrate. Over pasta and white wine, she dropped the bomb. Stage 2 breast cancer. Treatable, the doctors said, but expensive. Her insurance would cover some, but the co-pays, the experimental treatments, the specialists, it would add up fast. Don't worry about it, Mom said, patting my hand. Kyle said he'd help out. Kyle, my 28-year-old brother who lived in Mom's basement, whose greatest achievement was reaching prestige level in Call of Duty. Kyle, who hadn't held a job for more than 3 weeks in his entire adult life. Mom, Kyle doesn't have any money. He's going through a tough time, she said, the same excuse she'd been making for him since high school. Besides, he's here with me every day. That's worth more than money. I should have seen the writing on the wall then, but I was too busy being the good daughter. The next day, I set up automatic transfers from my checking account to Mom's. 500 here, 1,000 there. Whatever she needed. The bills started immediately. Oncologist appointments. Radiation. Medication that cost more than my car payment. I paid them all, keeping meticulous records in a spreadsheet because that's who I am, someone who keeps spreadsheets. Meanwhile, Kyle's contribution to Mom's care consisted of driving her to appointments when his gaming schedule allowed and making her sandwiches that he'd eat half of. But to hear Mom tell it, he was Florence Nightingale reincarnated. Kyle spent all morning researching treatments online. She'd gush during our weekly calls. That's great, Mom. Did he find a job while he was online? Jessica, don't be cruel. He's doing his best. His best included asking me for gas money to drive Mom to the appointments I was paying for. I gave it to him. Of course I did. Because that's what good daughters do. The years blurred together. Cancer retreated, came back, retreated again. I got promoted twice, took on extra freelance work, skipped vacations. My friends stopped inviting me on trips because I always said no. Mom needed another round of treatment, another specialist, another prescription that insurance deemed experimental. I dated a guy named Marcus for 2 years. He left because I was too focused on family. He wasn't wrong. While my peers were buying houses and starting families, I was funding medical procedures and watching my savings account drain. Kyle, meanwhile, had plenty of time for relationships. A string of girlfriends moved in and out of Mom's basement, none lasting long once they realized he had no ambition beyond his gaming setup. Mom defended every breakup. They just didn't understand his sensitive soul. His sensitive soul didn't stop him from buying a $2,000 gaming computer while I was rationing groceries to afford Mom's heart medication. Oh yeah, the cancer had done a number on her heart too. Add cardiologist bills to the spreadsheet. Where did Kyle get money for that? I asked during one visit, staring at the RGB-lit monstrosity in the basement. He sold some of his old games, Mom said quickly. Too quickly. I found out later she'd given him her emergency credit card. The one I paid off every month. But I kept my mouth shut. I kept writing checks. I kept being the good daughter from 2 hours away while Kyle played the devoted son from the basement. The last year was the worst. Mom's kidneys started failing. Another gift from the aggressive chemotherapy. Dialysis 3 times a week. A transplant evaluation that insurance wouldn't cover. $30,000 for a chance at getting on the list. I emptied my 401k. Paid the early withdrawal penalties. Watched my retirement disappear into medical bills while Kyle attended gaming tournaments and complained about the Wi-Fi speed at the dialysis center. You should move back home, Mom suggested during one particularly bad week. Kyle gets lonely taking care of me by himself. Taking care of her. Right. Unless taking care had been redefined to mean microwaving soup and pausing his game long enough to bring it to her. I can't, Mom. My job. Jobs come and go. Family is forever. Funny how family only meant me when bills needed paying. Mom died on a Wednesday. Kyle called me, actually crying this time. She went peacefully, he said. I was holding her hand. I wanted to ask if he'd paused his game for it, but grief made me kind. I drove the 2 hours home, made the funeral arrangements, paid for everything. Kyle's contribution was choosing the music. He picked her favorite songs, I'll give him that. Even monsters have their moments. The will reading was scheduled for the Monday after the funeral. I wasn't expecting much. Mom had lived pension check to pension check, and most of that had gone to medical bills anyway. I figured maybe she'd left me her engagement ring, the one nice piece of jewelry she'd owned. Kyle could have the house. God knows I'd paid for enough of it over the years. Mr. Whitman's office was exactly what you'd expect from a small-town lawyer. Wood paneling, leather-bound books he'd probably never opened, a desk that had seen better decades. Kyle showed up in a suit that still had the tags on it, probably planning to return it after. Thank you both for coming, Mr. Whitman said, adjusting his glasses. Your mother updated her 6 months ago. She was very specific about her wishes. 6 months ago, when I was draining my retirement accounts. The reading is straightforward, he continued. Mrs. Thompson has left her entire estate to her son, Kyle Thompson. The words hit me like a physical blow. Everything. I whispered. The house, its contents, her life insurance policy, and all remaining assets. Mr. Whitman looked uncomfortable. She did leave you this letter. I took it with numb fingers, recognizing Mom's shaky handwriting. My dear Jessica, I know this may come as a surprise, but I need you to understand. You've always been so strong, so independent. You don't need my help. Kyle does. He's struggled so much, and without me, he'll have nothing. You have your career, your success. He only had me, the house will give him stability. The life insurance will help him get on his feet. I know you'll understand, because you always do. You're my responsible girl, Love, Mom. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in my purse. Kyle was already grinning, calculating his windfall. The life insurance alone was $500,000, a policy I'd been paying the premiums on for 5 years. That's everything, Mr. Whitman said. Unless there are any questions. Actually, I said, standing, I have a question for Kyle. How much? What? He blinked at me. How much did you contribute to Mom's care over the past 10 years? Financially, I mean. Since you were by her side and all. His face flushed. That's not. You can't put a price on emotional support. You're right. You can't. But you can put a price on chemotherapy. And radiation. And dialysis. And experimental treatments. Anne, what's your point? He snapped. No point. Just curious. I turned to leave, then stopped. Congratulations on your inheritance, Kyle. I'm sure you'll use it wisely. I was at the door when Mr. Whitman spoke up. Miss Thompson, could you stay behind for a moment? I have another matter to discuss. Kyle looked suspicious but left, probably eager to start spending his windfall. When we were alone, Mr. Whitman pulled out another folder. Your mother wasn't my only client in your family, he said carefully. What do you mean? Your grandmother, Eleanor Thompson. She passed 15 years ago. Yes. Grandma had died when I was in college. She'd left everything to Mom, as expected. She also had a life insurance policy, one that listed you specifically as the beneficiary. I frowned. Mom told me there was nothing left after funeral expenses. Your mother was incorrect. He slid a paper across the desk. The policy was worth $100,000. It's been in a trust, gathering interest. Your mother couldn't touch it, though she tried. Multiple times. I stared at the number. 15 years of compound interest had turned it into nearly $200,000. But there's more, Mr. Whitman continued. Are you familiar with filial responsibility laws? No. In our state, children can be held financially responsible for their parents' medical debts if the parents can't pay. He pulled out another document. Your mother's estate, what she left Kyle, doesn't begin to cover what she owed. The house has 2 mortgages. The life insurance won't cover half the medical debt. So Kyle inherits debt? Not just Kyle. His expression was carefully neutral. Both children can be held responsible. Unless one child can prove they've already contributed their share. He glanced meaningfully at my purse. Your mother mentioned you kept excellent records. I thought about the spreadsheet. 10 years of transfers, receipts, canceled checks. Every penny documented, because I couldn't help myself. I have everything, I said quietly. Then I suggest you provide that documentation to the estate. Any contributions you made would be deducted from your portion of responsibility for the remaining debt. And Kyle's portion would be everything else. I did the math. I'd paid over $180,000 over 10 years. The remaining medical debt was around $200,000. If my contributions were counted against my share, Kyle would owe everything that's left, I said. The estate would owe it, Mr. Whitman corrected. But yes, as sole inheritor, Mr. Thompson would be responsible for settling those debts. The house would need to be sold, the life insurance would go to creditors. He'd get nothing. He'd get what remained after debts were settled, which, given the numbers you're suggesting, would likely be nothing. I sat back, processing this. Did my mother know about the debt? I advised her of it 6 months ago when she updated her will. His tone was carefully professional. She said Kyle would figure it out. Figure it out. Like he'd figured out how to hold a job or contribute to her care. What do I need to do? I asked. Provide documentation of all financial support given to your mother. The estate will review and apply it against any claims for filial responsibility. He paused. I should mention, if you don't provide this documentation, you could be held responsible for half the remaining debt. Half would be $100,000. On top of the $180,000 I'd already paid. I'll have everything to you by tomorrow, I said. One more thing. He slid a business card across the desk. This is Mrs. Chun, the forensic accountant handling the estate. She mentioned hoping to speak with you about some irregularities in your mother's finances. I took the card. What kind of irregularities? I believe she has questions about some large cash withdrawals over the years. Withdrawals that coincided with deposits into an account under Kyle's name. Mom had been giving Kyle money. My money. The money I sent for her care. Thank you, Mr. Whitman, I said, standing. For everything. I'm sorry about your mother, Miss Thompson. And I'm sorry about the rest. Don't be. Mom made her choices. Now Kyle gets to live with them. I spent that night compiling everything. Every receipt, every bank transfer, every canceled check. 10 years of sacrifice documented in a neat binder. Mrs. Chin was very interested in my documentation, especially when cross-referenced with the mysterious cash withdrawals. Your brother received approximately $60,000 over the past decade, she informed me during our meeting. Cash your mother withdrew from the accounts you were funding. For his gaming equipment, among other things. Concert tickets, trips with girlfriends, a motorcycle he crashed within a month. I laughed. Actually laughed. She was funding his lifestyle with my money while I was eating ramen to afford her medications. The estate will need to account for these transfers. They could be considered gifts that count against his inheritance. By the time the dust settled, Kyle inherited exactly what he deserved, nothing. The house sold for barely enough to cover the mortgages. The life insurance went to medical debt. The cash gifts were deducted from his portion. He ended up owing the estate $50,000, which he obviously didn't have. He called me, screaming about lawyers and fairness and family loyalty. I let him rant, then said, "You're right. Family should stick together. So I'll give you the same support you gave Mom, emotional only. I believe in you, Kyle. You'll figure it out." I hung up and blocked his number. The $200,000 from Grandma's insurance policy? I kept it all. Part of me wanted to feel guilty, but then I'd remember the 10 years of sacrifice, the relationships I'd lost, the retirement I'd emptied. I'd paid my dues. Kyle could pay his. The last I heard, he'd moved in with one of his gaming buddies and gotten a job at a warehouse. Manual labor, minimum wage, the kind of job he'd spent years claiming he was too good for. Turns out necessity is a better motivator than a mother's enabling. I used some of Grandma's money to take my first vacation in a decade. Sat on a beach in Hawaii, drinking something with an umbrella in it, thinking about how Mom's will had actually taught me something valuable. Being the responsible child means you've already received your inheritance. You got it in strength, in resilience, in the ability to stand on your own 2 feet. The Kyles of the world need money because they have nothing else. But those of us who've been paying our own way, we don't need anyone's handouts. We've already paid in full.